Can you imagine for a moment what it would feel like to belong to a group of people who populate the American prison systems more than they populate American society? The average African American male doesn't have to imagine, because this happens to be our reality. Each day, black men are faced with statistical facts from sources including but not limited to the U.S. Census Bureau and the Bureau of Justice Statistics. The numbers they provide reveal that you will find 3 times more black men walking the yards of American prisons than those walking freely up and down American sidewalks. What can be done to eradicate this incarceration epidemic? What fundamental building blocks are missing, which seem to separate those who earn time behind bars and those who earn a college diploma? The Black Men and Boys Academy of Fresno, California, was one organization which attempted to address this issue within their own community and work towards a solution for a brighter tomorrow.
We're developing this leadership academy, which we are identifying males to come in and be trained, have that conversation, give them the skills that they need, and then from there those men will be able to go into organizations and serve on their boards, serve in their committees, and give back to their community. And this project is designed to really focus in on what the barriers are that prevents our boys and men of color moving forward. Policies that somehow seem like they're designed for the purposes of derailing our men into success. Instead of them graduating out of the college system, high school, they seem to end up in juvenile hall, youth authority, and then into the prison system.
From here on out, anytime you can just bring everybody into the group.
The Fresno West Coalition for Economic Development received a grant from the California Endowment to sponsor the Black Men and Boys Leadership Academy. Keith Kelly, who was the CEO and president of the FWCED, knew he needed a strong staff to build a foundation of an effective institution, which is why he looked upon no other than organizational psychologist Dr. Gene Kennedy to be responsible for the development and coordination of the B&B Leadership Academy.
So we've had 6 categories that we've identified, and there's conversations going on in those categories right now, setting goals and objectives. We've looked at health as one category. How does health impact our African American males? Health access, health awareness, the whole HIV piece and prostate and other areas of health concerns. So we're looking at health. We're looking at the safety and justice system, looking at how can we get the message across to how can our black men feel safe in their community. We also have the education and training, because again, many of our men aren't able to get into the training, the education, the employment. They come out of the prison system. Who's hiring them? They've been out of society for so long with mental health issues. Who's hiring them? They've been unemployed for so long. Who's hiring them? You know, and so this is another category that we're looking at through the education and the training. Then we have capacity building. Our community has to find a way to develop itself. That dollar cannot leave our communities so fast. You get the $1 and buy three times, if that, the dollar is out of our community. So we've got to deliberately begin to find out, how do we keep the wealth within our community? How do we attract other businesses to our community? How do we build capacity? So financial empowerment, looking at entrepreneurism, looking at how to interpret the law so that they're on the right side of the law, how to develop your nonprofit organization, how to just be transparent and be responsible, how to be a role model to others. And we're hoping that while we're trying to attract 18 and over, we're also opening it up to others who are not 18 but can get permission to come in and then hook up with someone that's already in that training, so that you're already creating that mentoring while the courses are going on. It's a short term, it's 6 sessions. They'll be about 3 to 4 hours. will start in the middle of March, but we're looking to get good results, and already we've had people that are wanting to partner with us and saying, hey, I work at this organization, I'm part of this other organization, yes, I want to refer to you some African American males.
The BMB Leadership Academy, which began in late March of 2011, met every Saturday for 6 consecutive weeks at none other than Fresno, California's African American Museum, serving as a healthy and safe environment for black men and boys to engage in discussions and fellowship. The African American Museum was the perfect location to foster knowledge building and empowerment of black males. Each Saturday, participants of the Academy would meet in one of the museum's conference rooms for a few hours to participate in interactive discussions, presentations, and engage in peace circles, all facilitated by some of the Central Valley's most influential role models.
And I know that I want to make a difference in my life, because you know my history.
Right.
You know, I didn't have no problem sharing that with you, but I want to be a great follower and have a great vision that's the same as my leader.
But sometimes they don't match.
No.
And that doesn't mean that the leader's vision is flawed or unethical or anything. Sometimes they just don't match.
Okay.
But it doesn't dictate whether you're a great follower.
That's right.
Now, I'm a great follower because I make a choice to be one. Right? Now, sometimes that means challenging leadership.
Okay.
A great follower should challenge leadership.
Okay.
And challenge doesn't mean to be disruptive
Or defiant.
or defiant or manipulative or conspiratory or any of those things. Challenging simply means to put forth hard questions. I taught argumentation as a university professor for 15 years. Debate, forensics, all that stuff. Let me tell you something. As a people, we need to understand that there's nothing wrong with arguing. First thing I hear, I don't want to argue. Well, why not? Why not? It's the highest form of a civilized society.
Critical thinking.
It is the highest form of a civilized society. It is through argument we get peace.
Yes.
Without argument, there's no peace. There's chaos.
Yes.
See? And so there's a difference between arguing and fighting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Argumentation is ancient form of expression for moving heuristically to the highest level of consciousness, into reaching fact and vision and purpose and truth. We have to argue. It's called dialectics, right? So we keep going at it until we reach a common place. We go, okay, we've plateaued in the truth. And then we do it some more and keep going because we're always in the quest of that truth. See? So don't be afraid to argue. People who are afraid to argue can't. People who are afraid to argue don't know what they're talking about. Don't know the subject matter. So they're intimidated by that.
The new book that's out called The New Jim Crow's Era identifies the prison system as the new Jim Crow. And I did this exercise in my class. You literally can list all of the things that Jim Crow had, the laws that impacted African Americans, and you take those very same examples and line those up with the prison system and see how many of those impact African Americans. It's amazing how the African Americans are going through the same thing.
I got you, okay.
To further identify and comprehend the institutional barriers which seem to affect the success rates of large numbers of black men and boys, Dr. Gene Kennedy arranged and facilitated a BMB Academy field trip, in which a small group of Academy participants joined Dr. Kennedy to visit the state's capital and listen to a speech given by author Michelle Alexander. Hosted by the Sacramento Area Black Caucus, Michelle Alexander discussed her most recent literary work entitled The New Jim Crow, Mass Incarceration in the Age of Colorblindness.
A vast new racial undercaste now exists in America, though you rarely hear about it on the evening news. Obama won't mention it. The Tea Party won't mention it. Media pundits would rather talk about anything else. The members of the undercaste are now invisible. to those who have jobs, live in decent neighborhoods, and zoom around on freeways passing by the virtual and literal prisons in which they live. We have created, in the years since Malcolm X's death and Martin Luther King Jr. was laid to rest, a vast new system of racial and social control that was literally unimaginable just decades ago. The systematic mass incarceration of poor people, especially poor people of color, is tantamount to a new caste system. It is the moral equivalent of Jim Crow. In the era of colorblindness, it is no longer socially permissible to use race explicitly as a justification for discrimination, exclusion, and social contempt. So we don't. Rather than rely on race, we use our criminal justice system to label people of color criminals and then engage in all the practices that we supposedly left behind. Today, it is perfectly legal to discriminate against criminals in nearly all the ways in which it was once legal to discriminate against African Americans. Once you're labeled a felon, the old forms of discrimination, employment discrimination, housing discrimination, denial of the right to vote, exclusion from jury service, are suddenly legal. As a criminal, you have scarcely more rights and arguably less respect than a black man living in Alabama at the height of Jim Crow. We have not ended racial caste in America. We have merely redesigned it.
These are the barriers again. How in the heck do you have a law or policies that would prevent this man from going back to his family who is getting welfare services? So what, they're in Section 8. He's now coming out of the prison system and he has nowhere to stay. You want him to be homeless? When he could be with Big Mama, he could be with his sister, he could be with a relative, but because they're receiving government aid, he can't come up in the house. These are the kinds of policies that must be changed. They have to be changed. You get a man who has his trade as a barber, his state license, or he has these he wants to go out and get state licensing, but because he has a felon, you won't certify him as a barber in the States. You know, we're sending them to what we call the Department of Correction. Correcting what? All they're doing is warehousing the people. They're not correcting them. They're not. What do you do? It's a punitive system. And when you lock up a person and you take away their freedom, you take away their manhood, you put them in an environment that's already unsafe. Men are subjected to all kinds of things that are going on in the prison system. You give them pennies on the dollar to do work that will never pay off the bills that they have on the outside, trying to make up for child support or whatever else is going on. They're exposed to other elements in the prison system. We have laws that keeps them in there indefinite. We got this 3-strike law that keeps them, gives them a life sentence. We've got sexual violent predators laws that a young man who's 18 years old that's dating a 17-year-old that's consensually agreeing to date each other, and yet because for whatever the reasons are, maybe the parent, whoever, doesn't want this, and the young man gets charged in whatever it is he does. Now he has this label that's on him. Now he's identified as a registered sex offender, which is going to take him through the rest of his life. So these are the sorts of laws and things that has to be changed. So whether it's this program, the project, Black Men and Boys, or whether it's some other program, I just think that a unified voice needs to come together.
Be sure to tune in to part 2 of this film, which examines the success and final outcome of the Black Men and Boys Leadership Academy of Fresno, California.